Alright, so welcome back to the channel. My name is Joseph. Today's video is going to be different. I know you know from the title of the video that I'm going to be using primarily dodge and burn to retouch this image. Obviously, I'll be using blemish removal, but this process is a little bit different from what I normally do on this channel. I always start with blemish removal, then I go into frequency separation, and then I do dodge and burn, like 2 different levels of dodge and burn, and then from there I color grade. But with this, I'm just going to go straight into dodging and burning after I'm done removing the blemishes, and then basically just fixing certain things in the image. So without wasting much time, let's jump into the video so you can see how I edited the image from looking like this to looking like this. Alright, so I've already imported the image into Photoshop, and what I want to do first of all is to have a plan with you guys. I've already gone ahead to fix some of these issues and just remove the blemishes just to save time, but I want to draw the plan from the background and show you guys what I did or what I've done so far and how far I want to push the image. So starting off with this background layer, what I want to do first of all, let me just select a brush, a visible one in terms of color so you guys can see. Let me just use green. Alright, so in my mind, what I want to do to this image is first of all fix these areas where our backdrop didn't reach. So this entire area, I want to fix that. And then also you notice that over here we have the edge of the table showing, but on the right hand side it's been cropped off. That's because I used a very long table for this. If you haven't seen the behind the scenes, then maybe you should pause this video, go and watch it so you see how I captured these images, and then you can come back to the retouching section, which is this video that you're watching right now. Alright, so I'm just going to flip that over and then just blend it in so we have another edge just so it looks more symmetrical. That's what I'm trying to do. And then afterwards, we're just going to remove some of these blemishes. Thank God she doesn't really have a lot of blemishes, and just clean up the image with our healing process before we prepare it for dodging and burning. Afterwards, we're also just going to add a little flame right here because I feel like this candle, if it was lit, it would have really added a lot to the image, but I didn't light it up during the photo shoot, and I'm just thinking it's something that I can quickly just add on in post. After we're done with that, I want to draw more focus onto my subject, and so what I'm going to do is basically just darken around the image so that we can just straight away have our attention drawn into the central part of the frame. I'm not going to darken it so much that we don't see the elements in the foreground, because what I will also end up doing is I will be adding a bit more light to like the fruits, the jewelry down here, the ones in here, and some of the fruits here as well, just so they stand out a little bit, but it's just not going to be loud enough to compete with the entire image. So this basically draws out the entire plan that I have for this image. So we can just go ahead and I can show you what I've done so far. So I have already fixed the edges. If I zoom in, you can see that we have filled this in, and this is just a simple thing to do with content aware fill. And afterwards, what I did was I just copied this area with my lasso tool like that, made a duplicate of it. As you can see right now, this is movable, so I just moved this to the right hand side, flipped it over, and then I blended it in. So that is why I'm calling this edges, because I fixed all of the edges in the image. You can see it just adds a bit of symmetry to the image, and I absolutely love it. Afterwards, I just went ahead to use my healing brush tool to remove the blemishes that were standing out in the image. If you can see, here's a before and after. If I just zoom in a little bit more, that's all I've done before after. So I also removed some specular reflections because the light I was using to light this up was a very harsh light, and so there are certain areas that were just picking up too much of the brightest points of light, and by using my healing brush to remove those, it just helps settle the image a little bit, and it just gives it a more of a refined look. Alright, so now that we have the edges and the healing out of the way, what I'm going to do right now is just go into my actions, and I'm going to run my dodge and bend complete actions. So this is just going to basically create the curves adjustment that I need, and inside there you see that there's a desat and a contrast adjustment. For this, because the image is already moody, I don't want to add a contrast to it, otherwise it's just going to darken the image too much. So what I'll just do now is figure out where the tonal transitions don't blend into each other really well, and I'm just going to go in with my regular brush and a very low flow of, let's just say 2%. Let me just type that in. And now we're just going to zoom into the image and basically just start blending in areas that need a bit of blending. I'm also going to be using a soft brush for this. You don't really have to go in with very strong strokes, otherwise it will be visible that you know enhance certain parts of the image. So what I like to do is just use a very low flow so that all the adjustments I'm making will be very gradual, and that build up is what's going to give the final effect that I'm looking for. So currently I'm painting with a brush. I know you don't see anything, but if I do it before and after, you can see that we really have lightened certain areas, and I'm beginning to think that even a 2% flow is a bit too strong, so I'm going down to 1%. And depending on the area that I'm painting, I will be adjusting the size of my brush to fit, but this is also a very painstaking process, so I'm just going to speed it up, but then just know that this is all I'm doing. When I start with the burning, I'm just going to pause the video and then talk you through what I'm looking out for when I'm doing the burning. So now I have done all of the dodging. If I just do it before and after, you can see that just doing that alone lifts up the image. It just brings it to life. It just makes everything look really good. And this is only dodging. So I'm just going to go in with the burn tool, and now I'm just going to paint in any areas that I feel like are too bright for where they should be, and then just darken those down. So just like the opposite of dodging. So burning obviously is darkening. So any area that I feel like should be a little bit darker than it looks, I'm just going to be burning that in or painting that in. And you can see so far I've just been working on the layer mask. This just gives me a ton of flexibility. So just in case you don't know how to create some of these layers like the dodge and burn, or if you want to use frequency separation, you don't know how to create frequency separation layers, all of these are in the actions. And so it just makes working inside Photoshop a little bit faster, so you can focus on what you're doing instead of figuring out where each tool or what action you should run at what point in time. Alright, so far you can see that just doing a little bit of burning is actually going a long way to also help make the image look really good. But what I'm going to do now is just speed up the video, because I just don't want this to become a very long and boring video. I didn't really have to do a lot of burning because I think I really took my time with the dodging, but if I do a combined before and after, you can see how we've been able to lift up the image and it looks really good. This is just a combination of dodge and burn, and I'm already really impressed with the way the image looks. Alright, the next thing I want to do is run another dodge and burn. So I'm just going back into my actions and running the individual dodge and burn actions. I'm just going to put these in a group and call this global dodge and burn. So I'm just going to go with the dodge brush, and for this I can just go with a little bit of a higher flow, let's say 3%, and basically just enhance every area that already has highlights in there. And I don't have to be too careful at this point because I'm just going to use my opacity to figure out the intensity of these adjustments that I'm making. But I'm also not going to limit this to just the skin. I'm going to actually paint in the towel, head wrap, anywhere that there's a highlight. I'm just going to go over those areas, and this basically is just a way of enhancing the three-dimensionality in an image. So everywhere that you have your highlights existing, you can just dodge it a bit more, and we'll do the same thing for the burn. If I do it before and after, you can see that it's a very strong effect. So I'm just going to speed this up and just basically paint over all of the bright areas in the image. Alright, so now that I'm done with this global dodge, I'm just going to go into burn and do the same thing. So from the towel, any areas that are dark or that didn't catch light, I'm just going to go in there and enhance those a little bit. So all the way from the face through to the towel to the outfit that she's wearing, any areas that are dark, Alright guys, so doing a before and after of this combined dodging and burning to add more of a pop to the image, you can see that it's really popping out, it's really standing out, and I absolutely love the way it looks. But this, some of you might say I've gone a little bit overboard, and that's true. So just to tone it down, I'll bring my opacity down to about 60%, do it before and after. You can see it's subtle, but it's present. And after, this is what our healing and dodging and burning process has been able to do for us so far. So if I zoom into the face even more, here's a before, here's an after, and this is looking really good. Alright, so now that I'm happy with the healing and the dodging and burning that I have done, the next thing I want to do is turn on the flame. So I've already gone ahead to look for sample images, and I've already saved them on here, opened them inside Photoshop, and you can see that there's a similarity between all three images I've imported, and all of them are currently on a black background. This is very important, right? Let me just show you how. So I'm going to right click this, duplicate, and move it onto the TIFF file, which is what we're working on. Press OK, and that should make a duplicate of that layer onto the document that we're working on, right? I'm just going to rename this into flame. Actually, just create a group because there are other things that I will be doing inside of this group, and I'm just going to call this candle light, so that I know that my candle light is in that group, right? So if I hide it right now, you can see that I've hidden the group and the flame also goes away. So anything I want to add on into this group, I can just do that in here, and everything is just going to be nice, concise, and well arranged inside Photoshop. All right, so remember I said that it's really important to have like this image be on a black background, and that is because if I want to use like the selection tool to mark out the flame, it might not give me a very accurate selection. So the best way to go around this is to have the flame on a black background and simply change the blending mode from normal to screen, and you can see that straight away everything that was black is completely hidden, right? So I'm going to look for where to set this flame at. I think somewhere here. Currently looks too big, so I'm just going to resize it, bring it down a little. Still think it looks too big, so just will move this right to where the flame is, and now I can just drag that and keep it at the central point. I think something like this might be okay. So just press OK, zoom in, make sure that it is exactly where I want it to be. So now what I want to do to the flame is make it look a little bit more believable. So what I need to do now is just to add a bit of glow. So how I'm going to do this is by creating 3 different layers, and with the first layer what I'm going to do is sample. So zoom in a little bit, press Alt, sample just this orange glow right here, and I'm just going to keep it at a relatively small round brush. I'm going to click with 100% flow. I'm just going to click once, and already doesn't look too good, but I'm just going to leave it as it is right now. I'll go on to layer 2 and make this a little bigger, and then also just look for the center point, make it a little bit bigger even, and click once as well. Then I'll go on to the 3rd layer and make this even bigger, and also look for the central point and click once. Now that I've been able to do all of this, I'm going to change their blending modes into linear dodge add. I'll go into layer 2, change that also to linear dodge add, and go to the first layer and do the same thing, linear dodge add. Now I'm just going to hide the first 2 and start with this. As you can see, it's adding a bit of glow in there, but it's a little bit too strong, so I'm just going to bring the opacity down. This is to about 64%. I'll go on to layer 2, turn that on, and do the same thing, reduce the opacity just so it's not too strong, 60%. Do the same thing with the last one, and even bring the opacity down further. This is to about 30%. So right now, if I just hide the group, here's a before, after, before, after. I still think it looks too strong, so I'll actually just bring the layer 1 down even more. Let's say 46% or 50, and do the same thing with this. Yeah, 53%. Actually, just go up on the bigger one. Yeah. Okay, looking at the whole thing, I feel like it looks a little bit too strong. So I'm just gonna go down even further. So set this to, let's say, 25%. Go on to layer 2, set this to 40%. And Yeah, okay, I'll just keep layer 1 as it is. Maybe layer 3 should go to 35%. As you can see, this is not set in stone. I'm just changing my mind, going back and forth. Yeah, I think this looks a little bit better. So now what I want to do is just bring a little bit more attention onto my subject and darken down areas that I feel like are competing with my main subject. So I'm going to go into my actions. I'm going to go into the individual actions and I'm going to click on relighting, press play. And what that should do is basically just create curves with a darkening and brightening effect attached to it. So I'm just going to go into the darken and fill that with black. I'm going to go into the darken and fill that with white. I'm going to click on gradient map and I want to use a radial gradient for this, and I'm going to use a black to transparent transition, and I'm just going to draw a round circle from the center point outwards. So what this is doing is basically just darkening around my subject and keeping where she is a little bit more brighter. Just make the circle a little bigger. Right, so here's before, after, before, after. I'm going to go into brighten, and this time I'm going to use from white to transparent, draw from the center point and drag that out. Now if I just do it before and after, you can see that we really have a spotlight effect on our subject, and this is something I always like to do. The brightening I feel is a little bit too strong, so I just go down on the opacity. Let's say to about 49%. Even with the darkening, I will just go down a little bit to 60%, and here's our before and after. It's subtle, but it's present and it does the job exactly how I want it to be. Now, what I'm also going to do is create a new curves in there, and I'm just going to brighten this a little bit, and I'm paying more attention to the fruits that are down below, not necessarily to my subject. I'm going to invert this and make sure I set it to black, and I'm going to go again with my gradient, and this time I'm just going to create small pockets of light where the fruits are, just so we have a little bit of attention moving down there. Also on this jewelry right here, a little bit on the lemon, just create small pockets of light, and also right there. Should I add one to the flame? Okay, adding a bit to the flame also just makes it look a little bit believable. So here's a before and after. If I do just all the highlights I added, you can see that it is bringing a bit of attention over there. Do the same thing to the red plant over here. Just create small pockets of light, like our attention just goes there a little bit, but it's not strong enough to compete with the rest of the image. I'll just bring the opacity down to, let's say, 50%. Here's a before and after. So this is a complete before and after of our relighting, and you can see that it is just adding a bit more depth to the image. I absolutely love the way it looks. I also just want to do one last thing and just darken the bottom part of the frame a little bit more. So I'll create another curves and I'll darken this. Hit Command I, and this time I'm going to use the linear gradient and then just create a little bit of a darker gradient down at the bottom, just like that. Maybe just add a bit to the side and here as well, so that we are boxing her in. And I think, yeah, this just reduces attention to the bottom part of the frame and then just puts everything to the top part. So here's a before and after. I really love the way it looks. Let me just go down and reduce this even more. Also the darkening, just reduce that just a tiny bit more. Here's a before and after. I really like the way it is, and I already spent time color grading this image. So what I'm going to do is just bring in my color grade, duplicate, put this on the TIFF file, press OK, and now we've been able to color grade our image. So I just do it before and after. It's just a very subtle change. It took me a while to be able to settle on this color, and that is why I just copied it from the previous image I had edited and then just pasted it on there. Now I can just do a quick rundown on everything that we've done. So this is our starting point. This is where we started from. The edges were not really filling, the table wasn't symmetrical, and I just filled those in with this. And the next thing I did was to remove blemishes and some of those like very popping reflections in the image, especially on his skin. And I also did my first level of dodging and burning, which brought a bit of structure to the image. The next one was just to add more depth to the image, just make her pop off the background a lot. Then I turned on the candle, and I also just relit the image to bring attention to our subject, and I just finally color graded the image just to give the whole image a very nice look and feel. I think it's a little bit too strong, but just go down to about 80%, and this should be the end of our retouching. I hope you found value out of this video. I hope you learned something out of this. If you did, let me know in the comments down below. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and remember, don't ever give up.